Today's gospel is taken from the book of Matthew, the 11th chapter, verses 16 through 30. Now, today's gospel text takes part in about the time of the middle of Jesus' ministry. So last week's gospel text was between the resurrection and the ascension. Well, we're going backwards a little bit this week to the middle of Jesus' life on this earth and ministry. And most of chapter 11 is in response to people's negativity about Jesus' words and deeds, his ministry. And so people have been insulting him. People have been questioning him. Even John the Baptist, who of course points people to Jesus, questions who Jesus is. John the Baptist has been in prison. He sends word through his own disciples to Jesus asking the question, "Are you the Son of God?" So that's where our gospel text today takes place. It's in response to negativity around this question of who is Jesus. And Jesus says, "But to what will I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. For John the Baptist came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, 'Look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds." At that time, Jesus said, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him." Jesus says, "Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. The congregation may be seated. Have you ever had one of those days when you wake up tired and it takes all you've got just to get out of bed, and you need a cup of coffee just to get going? Have you ever had one of those days when you try to do everything right, but people take it wrong, and people respond with negativity and anger? Have you ever had one of those days when the weight of the world just seems a little bit too heavy? In today's gospel text, Jesus seems to have one of those days. Matthew chapter 11 is primarily negative reactions to Jesus' words and deeds. The discontent is growing, and it's growing into hatred. Hatred that will eventually lead to the cross. Hatred that leads to death. Now, there's a couple of lines in today's text that I want to point out. First of all, from verse 16, Jesus says, "But to what will I compare this generation?" Now, with a show of hands or maybe a nodding of your head, how many people here today are concerned about our younger generation? Yeah, I too am concerned about our younger generation. And there's a lot to be concerned about. We live in a dangerous world. We live in a world where faith life is changing. Do you know the fastest growing religious group in the United States? Now, the guess might be Muslim or Mormon, who are both growing fast. The American evangelical Christian church is growing. But the fastest growing religious group in the United States are nuns. And we're not talking about the Catholic nuns wearing a habit and praying. We're talking about the people when asked to check a box for your religious affiliation, check none. This group is becoming known as the nuns, and it's the fastest growing group in the United States. But for those of us who are concerned about our younger generation, today's text also has a word of hope. And although you and I are saying this generation of children and youth are so much worse than our generation was, they play too many video games, they don't take responsibility, they don't go to church enough, and although these things are probably true, does it make you feel a little bit better that our parents said the same thing about us, and their parents before them said the same thing about them? And generation after generation says this about the next generation. And this dates back apparently at least 2,000 years, because even Jesus says, I'm concerned about this generation. Now here's the word of hope. Jesus shows concern about this generation, but Jesus also uses children as an example of faith. Jesus says, yeah, you might be wise, you might be intelligent, you might be smart, you might even be right, but God has hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and has revealed them to infants. You see, it's not about what you know, it's about what you believe. Now, I believe that yes, our young people face challenges that you and I didn't have to face as children. But I also believe that we have an incredible generation of good people in today's children, youth, and young adults. We have an incredible generation of critical thinkers, young people who are concerned and caring for each other, young people who are concerned and caring for the earth and the world around them, young people who want to know the difference between right and wrong. Young people who want to make a difference in this world. In 3 weeks, we leave with 36 people from Hillsboro on a youth missions trip, in which these 36 people are putting their faith into action to make a difference in people's lives. This afternoon, we're leaving for Red Willow Bible Camp, where Katie Anderson has committed her summer and herself to serving God and serving others, her and other counselors at the camp. I could go on and on about the wonderful things our young people are doing. Take heart and have faith. We have a generation of young people, although there's challenges, who are doing wonderful things and making a difference. The next line in this text that I want to point out follows Jesus' question about, to what should I compare this generation? Jesus continues, we played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what this actually means, what this literally means. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We wailed, and you did not mourn. And one possibility is that it's about celebration and sorrow. The flute was played at celebration events like a wedding. Of course, the wailing and the mourning has to do with death and grief. It could possibly be about gender roles and getting along. The men played the flute and the women wouldn't dance. The women wailed and the men wouldn't mourn. It could also be about laziness. The people are willing to participate in the easy roles, but they won't participate in the more difficult roles. It sounds like maybe not much has changed. What it means literally, we don't exactly know, but we do know the point that Jesus is making. He is saying, I have led, but you have not followed. I have taught, but you have not believed. I have loved, but you have hated. And people are hating. People are looking for reasons to hate Jesus. And Jesus speaks to this. He says, John the Baptist came neither eating nor drinking. And you said he has a demon. I, the Son of Man, Jesus says, came eating and drinking. And you said, look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Now, I don't know if this is so different from us. I don't know if much has changed in the last 2,000 years. In the biblical story, people looked for reasons to not follow Jesus. He eats, he drinks. I can't follow him. He's a friend of tax collectors and sinners. I'm not going to be friends with him. And I think in a way, we continue to look for the same reasons to not follow Jesus. We look for reasons to not go to church or to put our faith into action. People say things like, the church is full of hypocrites. I can't be a part of that. All the church wants is my money. I'm not going to go. I'm busy. It's summer. It's my only day to sleep in. I believe in God, but I don't believe in religion. So on and so forth. What is your religious affiliation? None. It's true. We live in a world where there are challenges. We live in a world where sometimes we're going to have one of those days. We live in a world where there's danger, grief, and despair. But in today's gospel text, we are reminded that we also live in a world with hope. In the gospel text, Jesus is facing negativity. Jesus is facing resistance and hatred. People are striking at Jesus, insulting him, calling him names. And how does Jesus respond? Does he respond to hatred with hatred? Does he respond to insults with insults? When he is struck, does he strike back? No. When Jesus is facing hatred, he responds with love. When he's facing insults, he responds with forgiveness. When he is facing death, he responds with life. Even when he is facing the weight of the world, Jesus says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." What a wonderful example Jesus has given us. Even in the face of hatred, Jesus responds with gentleness, grace, and forgiveness. This is my hope and this is my prayer for all people. No matter what box is checked, no matter what religious affiliation or faith tradition people are a part of or not a part of, this is my hope and prayer for everyone. May we, as the church, learn from this example that Jesus has set. So even when you are having one of those days, when you wake up tired and it takes everything you've got just to get out of bed, when you try to do everything right, but people still take it wrong and they respond with negativity and anger, when you're having one of those days when the weight of the world feels just a little too heavy, turn to Jesus and remember his words. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.